there's a stigma about parents being involved and things like that, but I don't think you can coach a kid without a parent.
Welcome to Midland Money Mindset, your weekly dose of inspiration and insights to ensure you enjoy each step of your journey. Whether you're saving for the future, planning your next big adventure, or simply looking to add more joy to your life, you've come to the right place. Now, let's dive in.
Too often, young athletes face pressure, burnout, and self-doubt, losing their confidence long before they lose their game. Our guest today, Ilya Podolskiy, knows that pain all too well. Bullied as a child and searching for belonging, he found strength through martial arts and purpose on the ice. Now a USA Hockey Level 5 Master Coach, CPA, and creator of the Podolskiy Method podcast, Ilya empowers parents, coaches, and players to build character, discipline, and joy through sports. His vision? To raise athletes who play with heart and live with purpose. This episode will inspire you to see how mindset, mentorship, and meeting can turn adversity into advantage, both in hockey and in life. I'm Larry Sprung, your host for the Midland Money Mindset and founder and wealth advisor of Midland Financial. Let's dive into the show. Well, I am super excited today to have Ilya Podolskiy, somebody who was out there and looking to make sports better for everyone. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in our conversation today. Welcome to the show, Ilya.
Thank you so much for having me. It's awesome.
Yeah, so we always like giving an opportunity for our guests to share their background. We find our listeners are always enamored with people's journeys on how they got and where they are. So can you share with our listeners a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are today? And then we'll talk a lot about, kind of what you're up to today.
I'd be happy to. So start with a little bit of my background. Currently, I'm a lead hockey instructor for the New York Junior Rangers for the youth hockey programming. I'm a USA Hockey coach developer. I am the creator and host of the Podolskiy Method podcast that focuses on parenting athletes. I'm the founder and operator of Sharp Skate New York, which is a skate sharpening shop locally here in Brooklyn, New York. I head coach and assist on multiple different youth hockey travel teams in a local rink at Aviator Sports, again in Brooklyn. And outside of that, professionally, I am the head of internal audit and vice president of SOX compliance over at Burford Capital, which is a firm that specializes in litigation finance. By trade, I'm a CPA, and I also hold a master's degree from Villanova School of Law. So quite a bit of things throughout my career. I think my forte or my path to happiness and joy lies with progress, as you could probably tell. And that's why I continue to do a lot of exploration, a lot of studying. Mm-hmm. I think that some of the best coaches and leaders are also the best students. And so as you go through life and you put yourself out there in an environment where you can learn and grow, you continue to expand your range in whatever you do. And I'm really glad that you mentioned my experience as bringing it to the table and trying to do positive impact. I have a positive impact in the community and on the folks around me. That's always my goal. I like to do philanthropy, help wherever I can. And overall, the way that I got here started as a young boy growing up in Russia. I came to America. I was 11 years old. I grew up in Moscow, came straight to New York, and lived here my whole life. As a youth in Russia, I've went through the difficult parts of growing up, including bullying and things like that. I had to fight through. My brother, I have an older brother who's 7 years older than me, was really into martial arts. And I got into martial arts as well. I actually hold a black belt in Taekwondo on top of all the things we talked about earlier. I wrestled in high school and college at Hunter College here in New York City. And through that experience, hockey was actually somewhat of a secondary sport for me in the background as I was doing martial arts. And then once I got married and had a couple of kids, I have 3 boys, all play hockey now. And that kind of prompted me to go into coaching a little bit and pushed me into that realm. And as I got into coaching, I used a lot of the attributes I learned from martial arts and hockey and got to train with some professional coaches and professional NHL players and KHL players who helped me along to develop as a coach before I even stepped on the ice as a coach. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of my journey. Started from a young man and just took it to today.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you have a lot of free time on your hands, that's for sure. So, and I would also hope maybe based upon where we are right now, recording this early on into the 2025-2026 NHL season, hopefully maybe we can get some of those young junior Rangers ready to play, because we might need to call them up towards the end of the season the way things are going right now. But you mentioned martial arts, and you've shared publicly that being bullied as a child led you to take part in the martial arts. How did that whole experience shape you? Because I think that's important for other young people to understand.
It's a really good question. And for me personally, I feel that taking action is the way you fight fear. So, as a young man, young boy growing up in Russia, in a lot of Eastern European countries, and I would say it's globally, we see that a lot. Some people deal with it a little better than the others. We want to provide kids the tools to be able to progress through that kind of experience, right? Because of that experience, there was an interesting story that happened to me. I was probably about maybe 7 or 8 years old, and I had a buddy that was in my class. He was doing karate at a very high level. Same age, same class. And I was walking down the hallway, and an older boy from a different class, who's 3 or 4 years older, came up to one of the people from the group and said, "Hey, who's the weakest guy here?" And I called this guy. And I said, "Oh, okay, so I'm going to give it to him." And so as he's approaching me, the buddy of mine that was doing martial arts just kind of grabbed him, threw him over the hip, put him on the floor, and just held his fist right over his face and said, "Enough." And that stuck with me. That kid that protected me got in trouble. So his sensei, who was the teacher, pulled him in and said, "You're not allowed to fight outside of school. You're not supposed to do that." Even though he did something that was pretty amazing. He stood up for somebody. We weren't best friends. We weren't very close. But he saw and he did what we are taught to do, to protect those that need protection. And that experience, in a way, inspired me, but also I said, I don't want to be that guy ever again. I don't want to feel like I can't stand up for myself. I don't want to feel like somebody else has to do it for me. But more importantly, I want to be able to do that for others. I want to be able to be what my friend just did. And ultimately, I think martial arts teaches you, one, is a lot of respect, not just for people around you, but for yourself. And confidence. I think confidence is key to being able to protect yourself and those you love. You got to know you're capable. I listened to this public speaker, and I forget his name at the moment, but he said something like a man should always be dangerous. That we should have an element of monstrosity or being a monster in us, in a way that not because you have to use it, you have to know how to control it.
Right.
But if you're a dangerous man, if you're a dangerous person, you will deter some of these instances that impact us in a negative way. And so martial arts has been a roadmap for me to not just in physical and mental development of myself, but also in the way I hold myself at work and when I go to the office or whether I step on the ice.
Sure. Yeah, it's a whole framework for life, I think you would say. So you step into this world of martial arts, starting in Russia. Where did you find your love of hockey from? Where did that come from?
That's an interesting side story. I had a friend of mine in junior high school here in New York, and he called me up one day and said, "Hey, you want to go play hockey?" I had no idea what he was talking about. I think I was about 10 or 11 years old. I think 11. And I was like, okay, great. So we went out, bought some hockey sticks. At the time, there was a piece of wood with a rubber blade that was just kind of screwed in, and a plastic net and a ball. And we kind of ran around, and I instantly fell in love with the sport. I loved it.
Wow.
We were doing it like 5 hours a day after school, on the weekends. Ultimately, we got rollerblades, started doing it on roller skates. And the interesting part is that most of the guys that I started with that we played together for many years kind of faded out away from the sport. I faded more in. I joined the local roller hockey league. I started getting really involved. And then ultimately I switched to ice and kind of progressed from there. But that's really where that kicked off. And it was always something that I loved to do. I love to play. We played it when I was younger on ponds and things like that. But I was just too little to really give you enough perspective about what I remember.
Right. At what point did you kind of make this transition from, hey, I love this sport growing up and playing it? Because I think a lot of people play hockey, they enjoy the sport. They don't necessarily transition to coaching like you have and at the levels you have. So, how did that transition take place for you from, being a player to actually moving into the coaching realm?
Sure. So I think that it started with I had my firstborn. He was about 2 years old. And I happened to get ingrained in the hockey community with a number of coaches around the tri-state area here in New York, as well as some ex-pro players who were around. And I realized that I wanted to give it a shot because my kid was 2, he was coming up. I wanted him to start playing at 3 or 4, start putting him on skates, I kind of developing him. But I wasn't sure if I was going to be any good at it. I wasn't even sure if I'm going to like it. And so I came to a friend of mine who ran a spring program, and I said, one is I want to train. So every day before work, I would go to the rink. I would be there by 6 a.m. By 7:30, I'd be off, shower, put on the suit, and I'm off to Manhattan to the office job. And then I would come back and play in the evenings. And then that happened for about 2 years. So until my kid was 4, I've been doing that. And then in the spring, I started to coach with them. And very quickly, they gave me my own group I was working with, and parents started to take to it. The kids liked it. I really enjoyed it myself. And then 2 years in, when my kid was ready to start to skate, I reached out to the director of the rink, and he gave me the opportunity to coach as an assistant coach at 2 different teams. The year after, I got my own team, and I kind of never looked back. I do want to mention that it took me a few years to really become a good coach, in my opinion. I'm sure many people who know me would share the same. So, but the first couple of years, you're trying to prove yourself, and sometimes you go overboard with the intensity and the way you coach because you always think it's inherently you trying to prove your worth. But reality is, and I learned that fairly quickly, and I always think, Chris Warstein and Peter and some of the other guys that coached me up throughout the years, that they help you understand that it's not really about you. It's about the kids. It's about the families that you're coaching and creating that family experience. I think if you could talk about this a little more in detail, but I think that hockey is not just coaching the kid, it's coaching a family. And a lot of coaches think in the coaching world, there's a stigma about parents being involved and things like that. But I don't think you can coach a kid without a parent. And so I developed my own style and strategies through learning, not just in my element, but also from youth hockey coaches, from NHL alumni, from other coaches. And so I always like to jump on and watch what other people do to kind of pick up certain things that I can improve on. And so ultimately, I transitioned into this coaching world. And once I started realizing that I could really bring value to the kids, to the families, as not just as a coach to teach them to play, but to create that dynamic, that family experience for them that even now, I've been coaching for about a decade now, 10 years seems like crazy. But you see, I get messages from folks in college, it's like, hey, coach, remember me? Thanks so much for everything. I still remember you. And that's pretty amazing. And that kind of keeps you going.
I agree with you. I mean, when people start venturing down the path of hockey and specifically like travel hockey and leading down that path, I always tell parents that it's not like other sports. It's not just a sport. It's almost like a lifestyle, right? It's a lifestyle for the family, and they have to, they have to all be bought in, and they have to be all rowing in the same direction to be successful and have a great year. Now, one of the things that you've been open about is the fact that your father was not present in your life, and that led for you to coaches playing a major role in your life. And I would say we have some similarities there in terms of not that my father was not present in my life, but growing up, my mom was diagnosed with cancer, which at a very early age, which I talk about. So that led many times where my dad had to be attending to my mom and her medical needs. So a lot of times I was with other families, or many times the coach. And, my high school coaches were some of the best role models for me, because sometimes I was seeing them more during the course of the week than my dad, at no fault of his own, but it was just the way life came at us. So similarly, but different, right? How is those coaches in your life playing a major role for you? How has that shaped how you've coached? I'm sure there's been a major impact there for you as well.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with you in sometimes life puts things and obstacles in our way, and we kind of have a choice, right? You either learn from it and grow from it and become better, or we spiral. And so I would say I'm lucky to have had some amazing people around me growing up. I had Coach Podolskiy, if he ever watches this, was my high school wrestling coach. And he wasn't just a father figure to me. He was a father figure to a lot of us on the wrestling team, because there was quite a few of us who had absentee fathers. I came to the States at the age of 11, and my father didn't. He stayed in Russia. He passed away in 2018.
Sorry.
I appreciate it. But before my brother and I went to do the arrangement, we have a very close relationship. So even though there are separations, I think listening to your story and there's life that happens, right? And you understand that it wasn't particularly a choice that he could make. He had to do what he had to do. In my case, I think that it could have been different, but he made a different choice. And so when I step into coaching and I think about those people that became those role models for me, and I should mention that my brother was a huge influence on my life with martial arts and everything like that, even though he struggled with education. He was never a good student. He was never great at school. But he always made sure that I knew the value of education.
Mm-hmm.
So he would always push me into that. And he would say, just because I can't, it's not my thing, doesn't mean that you shouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, it's kind of like people supporting you. I don't think anybody does it alone. I think you need a little village, as they say, to get you going. When I go on the ice and we coach kids, I tell the parents, the first thing I do is when we have a parent meeting in the beginning of the season, I'll tell them, I'll be like, look, if there's something going on and you're willing to share about your personal life, your family, whatever it is, I would be happy to assist and help, not just being your coach, but also understanding what's going on with the kids, right? And so to me, coaching, and a huge part of it, is showing up.
Mm-hmm.
And if you show up, people will find comfort in your presence. They will find comfort in the fact that you're there for them. And sometimes you have to be stern and disciplined and all that stuff. But at the same time, if you're coming from a place of love and care, people really feel it, especially kids.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so important. And so that my experience has led me to what I try to bestow on other people. And it's not always easy. I'm not always successful. But I think the point is that if you show up and you try to be the best self that you can be, then you're going to help somebody else through the day, maybe through a month, and maybe through a year. It's not easy. I think sometimes I get home from work and I'm tired and I got to go to the rink and do 2-3 hours on ice and still spend some time with my own kids and my own family.
Yeah. And sometimes you don't know that impact for many, many years down the road, right? 10 years down the road, somebody sends you an email or they see you and say, hey, thank you for doing whatever you did because that time was difficult. And they may not have told you in the moment. So you're having impact even when you don't know you're having impact, right? So imagine a relationship where financial conversations don't feel stressful, but actually bring you joy. We've designed a guide to help you have positive, meaningful money conversations with your partner. This isn't just another budgeting tool. It's a roadmap for building trust and connection. So if you're ready to start a joyful money journey with your partner, go to Midland.us/couplesjoy and download your free guide. Transform your financial future together starting today. One of the things that you just kind of ran through also, which I think is important to know, because, we talk a lot about joy and work-life harmony on the show. You're a CPA by training, so you have your day job in the city. You run the skate sharpening shop, you're coaching, you're playing also. And not to mention, you're doing this all while raising 3 children, right? So what's your key? Because I think everybody's different, but what's your key to balancing all those things while getting that family time in too?
Great question. I think number one is my wife. And I don't think I could have done any of this without her. And we basically became a hockey family in a way that she would pick me up from the train and get me to the rink on time so I could coach, go to tournaments and games together. And sometimes I don't know how many miles she puts on the weekend now, but I know she has to fill up the tank like twice a week during the youth hockey season. And not only is it a family affair, it is also, we help others. So we have families that may not have enough funds to pay for hockey. Hockey is an expensive sport, right? And sometimes 2 parents working and they can't get the kid to the rink. So my wife would go out and grab the kid, or I would drive somebody home along the route. So we're kind of ingrained in the community, not just as a coach or as a family, but just being a part of the experience holistically. And to kind of balance it all, I try to just take it one day at a time. I don't think that looking far ahead helps me. I can't be thinking about what happens 3 weeks from now. I literally look at this weekend and I say, what do I have? I have the Junior Rangers learn to play. I have a game with this guy here, this kid here, and this guy here. And this is how we're going to go. My wife goes here, I go here. And then we're done at 6. Whose birthday party are we going to this weekend? And so it's a lot of just that microcosm, like this little planning what's in front of you.
Yeah.
There's a really fun story that I read a while ago about where a horse and a boy are walking through the woods. I don't know if you heard this one, but a horse and boy are walking through the woods and it's snowing really bad and just can't see anything. And the boy says to the horse, he's like, I don't know where to go. I don't see anything. I don't see the path. I don't know how are we going to get out of this forest? We're going to die. And the horse says to the boy, do you see the step in front of you? He says, yes. He said, take that step. And so take the step in front of you and keep moving forward. And I think if you keep doing that, somehow things just happen to fall into place.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of just day-to-day prioritizing, managing your schedule, and refocusing.
Yeah.
I think the one thing when you go in at 100 miles an hour that like I do a lot of times, and I'm sure that you do as well, and then many folks who are listening, I think the one thing that you have to make sure you do is self-reflect once in a while.
Right.
Whether it's going to the gym and lifting some weights and maybe just going to play hockey, which for me is like a therapy session. You get to yell at your friends and let some steam off, but also you kind of tune out the noise and you just play.
Agree.
You got to remember that hockey is a game. At any sport, whatever you play, you got to enjoy it and allow it to take over for an hour or two.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's some great advice. And I know you have your podcast, the Podolskiy Method, right? Parenting an Athlete. What was the impetus behind launching that podcast, or your podcast, I should say?
Sure. I started the podcast as a way for me to communicate to parents. I thought one is, as I mentioned earlier, there's a stigma around parents and how they help you develop an athlete. Many coaches will say, oh my God, COVID was the best year. Parents couldn't come inside. I just had the kids. They were so focused. It was great.
Well, in all fairness, Ilya, literally before I came in here with you today, there's a viral video going around from yesterday from 2 parents deciding to duke it out in Philadelphia in a lobby after or before a game. So I think to some degree, the stigma is put on them, but also I think many parents bring it on themselves too sometimes, no?
Yeah, and I did disagree. As they say, there's bad apples in every pot, right?
Right,
But
right,
you
right.
can't allow that to dictate the 90%
I agree.
of the
I agree
folks
with that.
that want the best for their kid. And what does that look like? If I think about coaching and I think about I get a kid on the ice and the kid, we're having a good time. Let's say I'm yelling, the kid's skating hard, whatever. And then they get into a car and they ride home, right? Which is probably the most important part of any childhood athletic experience is that ride home. And the parent says, wow, that coach was terrible. He was so bad. You guys had 8 people on line. One guy goes, 7 waiting. You shot the puck 3 times in an hour. Like, this was terrible. That kid coming back to you next week is going to look at you like, who are you and why am I even here? You're never going to
Right.
get him or her to a level that you want to develop them because their perception of you has been completely changed.
Mm-hmm. Wrongfully so, by the way, in most cases,
Right.
right?
But so, and what I find is that including a parent in that experience and helping them understand what you're teaching, you're not asking them for their opinion about how you train.
Mhm.
You're involving them so they can help deliver your message to the child. And by doing that, it becomes a family experience where now they go home and they say, well, I talked to the coach and, he said this, this, and that, and that would be great. I'd love to see that too.
Mhm.
And now the kid comes back to you. He's ready to listen. He's focused. And now you could do your best work.
Yeah.
I did a little speech to the junior Rangers coaches a month or so ago. And I talked a lot about two things. I think that there's two things that keep people coming back. One is if you're having fun as a coach, so will everybody else, right? So if you're
Yeah.
not having fun, you get frustrated, change the drills, change your approach because nobody else is having fun. And then we talked a little bit about creativity and just thinking about if I ask any parent, what's your favorite memory of your kid? They'll say their first step, their first word.
Right.
And then somewhere from the age of 6, 9 months, 10 months, when they start walking and talking, a year, to when we get them on the ice at 4 or 5, we go from, wow, how did you do that? Wow, you started to walk, you started to, why? Why did you break that glass? Why did you do this? Why did you do that? And so when they come to us and they get on the ice for the first time, for example, my Learn to Plays, I get to give them that feeling back. I get to remind those parents that, hey, the wow still exists.
Yeah.
Wow, your kid just got up by themselves. Wow, they took their first 3 strides. Wow, they started to skate and glide. Wow, they just learned how to stop. And so that experience brings them back, even though they might not realize it. But all of a sudden, they keep coming back and back because they love
Yeah.
that feeling that somewhere along the lines they lost and they connect with their kids.
Yeah.
And this is really the number one thing for us as coaches. And I think that we forget that we are connections.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great point. Great point. And speaking about connections, you and I, we connected during the Hockey Helps 24-hour marathon this past year in 2025. I've talked about that event before in terms of it's a 24-hour hockey game over Saturday and Sunday of Labor Day weekend from 10 a.m. Saturday to 10 a.m. Sunday. Great event, really supports mental health. And it's a way that I think you'd agree that, you get to use this sport to help raise money, awareness, and funds for something that's a meaningful cause. What does the event mean to you? I've spoken about the meaning for me, but what does the event and you partaking in that mean to you?
I've been doing that for this. I think this is my 4th year, and I started through the Junior Rangers, through New York Rangers program. And every year I look forward to that event. I think over the last 4 years, I get to see a lot of my friends who, whether they're NHL alumni or whether they're coached or whether they just play, who I don't just get to see on a regular day-to-day basis, right? Because everybody's so busy, everybody's traveling. So it brings everybody together, but it also tests your endurance. It tests your mental focus while supporting some outstanding, amazing causes. I think I teach my kids all the time that you learn and then you give. So you learn, you grow, and give. And so that's kind of like the cycle. So to me, it's a lot of it is giving back and seeing that ceremony at the end. And I always stay through the ceremony where they present the checks, because to me, that's really heartwarming. It's really great to see us being a part of something that big where they donate to cancer research, to suicide prevention, to orphanages, autism, and all these amazing causes throughout the years, and which really makes a difference. And so as an individual, we may not be able to make as much difference as we would like, and whether it's financial resources or physical resources, being a part of something bigger and seeing 150, 200 people coming together and making that happen, I think that's really amazing, and it's inspirational. Sleeping in the car is not fun, but other than that, I love that event.
Well, if I woke you up because my alarm went off in the car this year twice, I apologize, because it woke me up too. Evidently, I got to bring a different car next year, because mine has an internal thing that if you move, and I was rolling over, it set off the alarm. But yeah, I agree. That's not too inspirational, but the fact that you get out of that car, you put the gear back on, and you get back on the ice, it shows you what's important, right, when all's said and done. So thank you for taking part and raising awareness for that great event. I appreciate it. I know the organization does as well. So listen, Ilya, it's been a pleasure. We ask each of our final guests the same question, because we are all about joy on the Mitlin Money Mindset. And that is, what did you do today that brought you joy and put you in the right mindset for success?
That's a deep one. This is definitely ranking up there. So I loved having a conversation with you. I think this was great. I really appreciate you having me on the show. I think waking up, getting my kids ready. My wife does all the hard stuff, making them lunches and doing all that stuff, but just sending them off to school. And the one thing I always tell them is have the best day. Not a good day. Have the best day, meaning today is going to be the best day, better than yesterday. And every day has to be the best day. And if you keep doing that, you're going to keep taking a little inch up that ladder. And so I try to say that every day to them, but also it helps remind myself that if I just have the best day today, and then the best day tomorrow, and the best day after that, then maybe, we're on the path to something wonderful and successful. And I think joy comes from progress. So if we continue to grow and put ourselves out there and learn and push, then I think joy, finds us.
Awesome. Well, enjoy those kids, because mine are 19 and 22. I still enjoy them in a different way, but I miss those days of driving them to school, getting them to school, and having those moments with them. So enjoy every minute of it. And Ilya, we're going to have all of your information in the show notes, but just to make it easy for people, if they're interested in learning more about you, connecting with you, what's the easiest and the best place for them to do that?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook. I have a YouTube channel as well. Just look up the Podolskiy Method, or at Sharp Skate New York.
Okay.
You can also go to my website, the Podolskiy Method.squarespace.com, and check out some of the work I do. I'm actually also working on the board of a nonprofit organization called Sagacious Minds, and we're working on establishing some local after-school programming here in Brooklyn, New York, and hopefully that's coming up soon. And I'll be happy to connect with you guys. If anybody wants to reach out through social media, I'd be happy to answer and have a chat. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ilya. And I appreciate you taking out the time to share with us and our listeners today, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Ilya, thank you for sharing your incredible journey from overcoming bullying to becoming a master coach who shapes not just better athletes, but better humans. Your passion for mentorship, discipline, and joy in sports is a powerful reminder that mindset truly drives success. We're grateful for the insight and the inspiration you brought to the Mitlin Money Mindset today. Ilya Podolskiy and all he is up to can be found across most social media platforms. All the contact information needed to find them can be found in the show notes.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Midland Money Mindset. Remember, it's not just about the money, it's finding joy in the journey and embracing the right mindset. If you love the show, be sure to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Don't forget to follow along for more tips and inspiration. Please visit the social links below to connect with Larry or his guests. Until next time, keep smiling, keep thriving, and remember to think about, what did you do today that brought you joy?
The opinions voiced in the Midland Money Mindset Show with Lawrence Sprung are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. No strategy ensures success or protects against loss. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Guests on the Midland Money Mindset Show are not affiliated with CWM LLC.